You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Nick, I got to be honest. I don't want to support Milan. I'm scared of that guy. He still has my nightmares from that shot a couple years ago. I guess 3 games ago, a year ago. It feels like a long time ago. It's been there a long time. So you mentioned close games. I think this one's going to be a close one. What are your thoughts on it? Is it not going to be a close one?
No, I do think it'll be close. I'm just curious about, Iowa State, to me, has played very consistently with the lineup that we'll be touting out there on Saturday, to my knowledge at this time. Very just, we can beat you in any way, so don't tell me that it's, they only shot this percent or they went about it this way in this game. It's about the mindset that the whole team has. When I look at Houston, the one that stood out to me, and you didn't mention, I noticed, was the UCF game. Very close, very close to UCF in there. And then, the Kansas win in double overtime. Kansas been on a bit of a skid recently. Now, there's going to be that all over the Big 12. But I want to ask you, is this Houston team consistently going to perform at that high level? Because, you're going to get one, right, every now and then. You're going to get a Caleb Love 48-foot shot to beat an Iowa State. That's that's basketball. But can this Houston team carry this? Because they're going to have a tough last few games of this conference schedule.
Yeah, the back half of the conference slate for Houston's been just a gauntlet. But I will say UCF is interesting in that, it was like a really early in the day game, and I don't mean to make excuses.
That was with the delay, wasn't it? There was some delay.
It was a noon Eastern, so 11 a.m. Central Time. It might have been like 11:10 or something like that because of something. But the truth is, I think UCF and Coach John Dawkins over there have always played Houston close. This goes back to American Athletic Conference days when, you can go back to Taco Fall. Like that just, they've been a fairly like close program to Houston for whatever reason. And I think that there was some looking, if I'm being honest, looking past them. You had at that moment, you had a couple bigger games coming up. You came off of a West Virginia win, felt good about it. You had UCF and then Utah and then Kansas right after that. And you kind of I think had people looking forward to Kansas. They got by UCF and then blew the doors off of Utah. And I think
that game was over in the first 3 minutes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. They almost doubled up another Division I Big 12 basketball team in that game. And I feel like that was kind of their response. Okay, they get beat down at practice on Sunday, Monday because they looked past this poor UCF team. And now Utah bears the brunt of that. I feel like UCF's the outlier. I will say at the time, winning in double overtime and Fall Allen felt really good. And the further we get from that, the more it's like, that Kansas team, though, may not have actually had it all together. Now, I don't mean to point fingers, but one of us didn't beat Kansas.
Well,
no. So is it just because Milan was out? That wasn't, being honest, it was a 17-point. That wasn't particularly close.
Yeah, well, when you say 17-point, I'm not sure if you mean the 17-point win by the Cyclones or the 17-point loss. So it goes both ways.
They played them twice for the Houston folks home listening that don't know what he's talking about. They played twice already.
Yes. We played them twice, both at home and away. 17-point win for the home team in both of those. Crazy. And I will say, yes, the Milan thing, I think a big deal. But this is one that Iowa State fans do not side with me on this take. But I'm going to say it again. I think that 3-game skid was 100% because of Caleb Love. If he doesn't make that shot, we probably beat Kansas State at home, and we probably take care of business at Kansas. It just completely sucked all the life out of that team. It was at 1 a.m. local time that shot went in, and then you've got the overtime after that. And kudos. But there's just no way you're going to come back after a shot like that. And then you got to fly back. And then you've got Kansas State at home, who at that time was on a hot streak. And they erase your 29-game home win streak. Boom, boom, moral blow. Then you got to go to Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse in what is kind of a rivalry. And you've got nothing. And Kansas, they are looking to attack. So I'm not going to make excuses. But that was a horrible stretch right there.
And that Caleb Love heave, not to harp on that over and over again, because I don't mean to dig.
It's never going to leave my brain, bro.
But I remember then I'm watching overtime, and he hits the first of his 2 overtime threes, and the guy says, and that's his third 3 of the game. And I was like, his second 3 of the game was from 3/4 court. Just mind-boggling.
He was 1 of 10 when he shot that. 1 of 10.
Crazy. And of course it goes in and goes to overtime, and you're not going to lose that game in overtime. You can't lose that game in overtime if you're Arizona. Okay, so the emotional distress of losing like that hurts you. Plus you're missing, I'd argue, one of your best players. I want to hear more about Curtis Jones. We talked a little pre-pod, and we both he was on the team last year.
Yeah.
But Curtis Jones has stepped up in a whole different kind of way this year, leading the team in points, over 17 points per game. What is he doing well? Where did this guy come from? Who is Curtis Jones?
It's a great question, because honestly, kind of a lot of Cyclone fans weren't even really aware of this guy. Pops onto the scene this year as the 6th man, and now he's kind of become the 6th starter. TJ refers to him as the 6th starter because it's a pretty even distribution of minutes. It's just about bringing him off the bench and bringing that firepower, which, we're going to keep talking about this Milan injury because it has been so influential in Iowa State's season. When he started, that bench, there's just no firepower there. He is our leading scorer, but really only took over at the beginning of conference play. If you look back, it was kind of Keyshawn Gilbert. That was the dude in the non-conference. Very much Kyrie-esque play from him. And then the reins kind of got handed over to Curtis Jones. He's a baller. Okay. He's going to make threes from wherever on the court. He can drive. He's a dude. All right. He really is. But it's interesting, right? Because that Colorado game last night, he scored, I think, 7 points. So he doesn't have to score for Iowa State to win, which is something that I do appreciate. And you want to talk about influential transfers. It's Joshua Jefferson coming from St. Mary's, the leading rebounder for the Cyclones. And there's other dudes, if you want to listen to Locked On Cyclones, I break down almost every single one of these players. It's hard for me not to do that right now. But Joshua Jefferson, you're going to be looking for Curtis Jones because he's going to score a lot of points, I'm sure. But Joshua Jefferson is going to be sneaky and keep Iowa State in this game.
Well, and it's interesting because when I look at guys that were on the rosters you mentioned Houston returned so many guys. When Houston beat Iowa State last year at home, and this game is in Fertitta for what it's worth, College Game Day is going to be there. I want to talk about that a little bit, the potential impact of that, I guess, in a second. Houston rode Jamal Shed in this game like they did in so many. He had 26 points, 6 assists, and replacing that is going to be a lot. What? Not that there's a kryptonite that Jamal Shed type guy can replace, because we don't have that guy. Obviously, he's all Big 12, first player of the conference, right? Yeah. What kryptonite is there, and is there anything an Iowa State fan looks at Houston worried about? I mean, they got to be fairly confident after last year.
Yeah, I wouldn't say most fans are necessarily worried, especially after the 4-game win streak now with Milan back in. But if there's one thing, it's just the way that teams were able to exploit the team when Milan wasn't in, essentially. And I've covered this, but Kansas State was kind of the first one. A little bit, you saw it a little bit West Virginia as well, but just forcing the players to essentially play from the perimeter, not giving anything inside, be it passing lanes or actual Joshua Jefferson back down one-on-one type deals. That's where this Cyclones team can struggle. But you got to remember, the D1 players too. If they get hot, then they're going to make you pay. So it's kind of how do you want to try to stop the Cyclones? With Milan on the floor, my biggest point with this team is they can beat you just about any way. They really can. There's just too many good players on the floor, too many A- level guys. You're not going to have a superstar, but they're all going to make you pay in a different way. And they move the ball around pretty well.